Hello, this is Food Offensive Weekly News for March 1st, 2013, and here's what I have coming up on the broadcast this week. News articles this week include the ongoing saga and scandal concerning horse meat in our food, and as I looked at last week, and I mentioned the fact that this isn't that big of a deal in the whole scheme of things. Obviously, if food that we say is one item, such as beef, and it contains something else, that is obviously a problem that goes beyond, in many cases, goes beyond truth in menus type issues and violations, but rather the sheer health and expectant potential consumers of these products. But as far as the food, this particular food ingredient being horse meat, it's not overall dangerous compared to what is already in our food. And actually, they tell us that's in our food, much less the stuff that they don't tell us that's in our food. But just to touch on this topic, the reason why I want to is they put out a horse meat infographic. The Australian Institute of Food Safety has released this concerning the timeline of this whole scandal, and of course just showing the various countries involved and what's wrong with horse meat. Nutritionally, it's actually be considered better than beef. Obviously, it's leaner and things like that. Shows the amount of people that eat horse meat and who supplies it, so on and so forth. This is brought to you by Australian Institute of Food Safety, so I wanted to point that out, but not to further expand this issue or, no pun intended, beat the dead horse on this thing. But also to point out one article from the Farmers Weekly talking about at an NFU conference 2013, it says McDonald's is confident in their supply chain. It says McDonald's is very confident that its short and simple supply chain has ensured there is no horse meat contamination in its beef burgers. Well, like I said, not that big of a deal, but obviously they need to make sure they address this and not take the hit that I'm sure Burger King has because of this. But I want to point this out only because they say short and simple supply chain. Well, I don't know about in the UK, but in the United States, it's been pointed out that a beef patty will come from several different cattle farms and cattle suppliers. You don't know how many different cows that each burger has parts from. So I don't know how McDonald's hasn't had an issue yet, but he does say that this is Warren Anderson. He's the VP of supply chain for McDonald's. He says that our chain is not under intense scrutiny because we keep the supply chain simple and transparent, and it is based on long-term relationships, he said. Consumers tell us they want good quality ingredients sourced locally far as is possible. We understand good food does rely on a strong farming sector. Yes, that's farmers supply you the food, and obviously, I don't know about in the UK again, but in the US, they use this word locally sourced. I don't know what that, that it can sound great, but how many locally sourced products, where is it really coming from? And the article ends by saying, Mr. Anderson was quick to reject an idea from our farmer that perhaps McDonald's horse burgers were a new product line worth considering. Well, obviously the people and consumers' perception of horse meat is obviously not very good, so it could be seen as a detriment to McDonald's. But hey, why don't they capitalize on this, and maybe they could look at it from making a buck standpoint, which is what they're all about, maybe they could actually make a go of that and try it out. If they declare that that's what it is and that's what it is, a horse burger, hey, let people try it and see what they think. And like I said, with the horse meat not being that big of an issue compared to other things that are in our food and things that are declared, much less things that aren't declared, current news right now is talking about how Russia banned the import of U.S. beef because of its containing ractopamine, a food additive, basically that we are putting in our meat here, and so Russia has denied import of that. It says the U.S. meat supplies to Russia have been banned. The Russian Federation and the United States differ in the assessment of the causes of the situation. Russia claims that the reason for the ban was the presence of ractopamine drug in U.S. meat. America insists that Russia's actions were a response to the adoption of the Magnitsky Act by the Senate and accuses Russia of violating World Trade Organization rules. And, of course, ractopamine is a food additive that allows to reduce the content of fat in beef and pork. The drug is added to food so that animals grow the muscle mass instead of fat. And according to researchers, this drug affects the human cardiovascular system and in some cases can cause food poisoning. This drug is banned for use in 160 countries. There again, it says including China and Russia. So there again, Russia has banned a food product that the U.S. allows. How backward is that? And so it says that Russia is the fourth largest importer of U.S. meat, and it spends about $500 million a year on it. And right now, at the time of this article, there was more than 200 containers of meat products worth about $20 million that were on their way to Russia. And Russia is, of course, denying import of that. The United States regards the ban of meat imports as a political move. And the article also says that one can speculate about whether it was done in retaliation or not, but the measure was based on the content of some additives in meat that are contrary to Russian sanitation standards. That's Deputy Director of the Institute of the USA in Canada. And this article is from Pravda.ru. It's a Russian publication concerning the ban of meat products containing ractopamine in the U.S. meat supply. And yet another drug that is in our meat here in America, the drug company Merck has a new drug called Zilmax. It's actually really just a renamed version of Zilpaterol, which was it was used to treat asthma in humans, and it basically is a drug that bulks up cattle in the last few weeks of their lives, bringing in more revenue for feedlot owners. And this article from Natural News talks about how Tyson and Cargill and others are now drugging their meat with Merck's new Zilmax. And it says for years Cargill actually resisted this use of Zilmax, but finally got on board to keep up with the market. See, even a company that tries to not use a certain product if they know it's bad or don't think that it's beneficial for the amount of money that they might spend on it, they're eventually forced to do it to keep up with the other competing companies. Now, this drug, the World Anti-Doping Agency actually banned the Zilpaterol drug for human consumption, so Merck just rebranded the drug Zilmax and started selling it to feedlots as a growth stimulant. So here again, we're getting the leftovers and the byproducts of whether it be failed, products that have been failed other places or in other uses, and they're finding other ways to sell it to us, and it's quite disgusting. A journalist visited a meat locker at a university in Texas, and basically the professor of animal science, he said that the pharmaceutically enhanced meat, quote, doesn't look like a Holstein anymore, a Holstein cow. So this article says, is that something really to be proud of? If a Holstein doesn't look like a Holstein anymore, what are we eating and what are we becoming? So it also has a subsection in here, drugged up beef has more profit. It says the drought in 2012 made it easier for Merck to sell Zilmax. Food production has everything to do with profit now instead of giving people healthy, real meat. And that's talking about a Zilmax advertisement that was put out, talking about the profits that you're going to make off of it. It doesn't say anything about the safety of it or that it's better for the consumer, but it just touts the profit, which obviously a company is looking for profit, but I would say at what cost are we trying to achieve that profit? And also this article starts to conclude by talking about universities and the agriculture industry and pharmaceuticals protecting one another. And it points out the fact that agricultural schools increasingly depend on the agriculture industry for research grants. And that a 2005 survey said that more than 2/3 of animal scientists reported they had received money from the industry in the previous 5 years. And the article author asked the question, weren't land grant universities created to serve farmers, ranchers, and their fellow man? Well, they sure have changed into the way that we see them now. And then a great encouraging conclusion to this article says that we can survive by resistance. It encourages us to read the labels, know where food comes from, ask questions, buy organic. The American Republic can restore its health through knowledge and awareness. With strength in numbers, the people can change the game. And yet again, we move on with more food fraud. Can you, I'm sure by now, see the trend here this week in coming out and land-based food products and land animals don't have this stage entirely. And in fact, in February, this month and this week, the buzz has been around Oceania's study that reveals seafood fraud nationwide. So it's also seafood that's having issues. This is dealing more with seafood labeling and selling seafood labeled as one type of fish, but in effect really being a different type. It has this article and this study put out by oceana.org, about 69 pages. It really goes through and has lots of charts and graphs, the types of fish that they had sampled, the types of common mislabeling, what type of fish was mislabeled, which one was correctly labeled, that particular thing. And also they break it down by retail type, and grocery stores having the most correctly labeled things, and then restaurants, and then sushi restaurants being the biggest to blame according to their study and the samples that they took. So it basically covers how food is being relabeled and mislabeled. It breaks it down by cities and then areas and cities, the national trends in mislabeled fish. Looks like snapper being the biggest culprit, them labeling it as different products than what they say it is. So this is a huge issue. Obviously, if you're buying your fish whole, then you have a better chance of seeing that it is what it says it is, and what you're actually paying for. It's not something that if you buy a fillet of something, it could possibly be passed on as something else, something cheaper, something more dangerous, such as the Natural Society article points out that restaurants and grocery stores selling a whopping 80% of, quote, white tuna was actually escalar, the snake mackerel fish that causes oily anal leakage, and was banned by the FDA until 1992. It's still banned in Japan, Italy, and requires labeling in countries such as Canada, Sweden, and Denmark. But of course, America is not as part of that. They said bring it on in and allow it. So also referring to the Atlantic article about that. There's just so much going on all the time. I am constantly looking up articles and things that are currently happening, things that maybe have been re-dredged up or dredged up from the past, and maybe articles referring to something that happened before but have kind of come back into the spotlight for various reasons. And one of the big things that's going on right now is the nanoparticle issue, the issue of having these small nanoparticles, nanomaterials in our food. And so for this week, in addition to the articles that you just saw me go over, I'm going to cover a special report that I've been working on for nanomaterials, and it's based on asyousow.org's issue brief that came out. I referred to this in about 3 weeks ago, 2 to 3 weeks ago, in the news broadcast when I first saw it, when it was first released. It's an issue brief titled "Slipping Through the Cracks," and it really covers the whole nanomaterial issue. It really just scratches the surface in some of the work that they want to do and go deeper into it. But I wanted to cover that this week, cover that study, cover that issue brief in this special report that I've put together. And so without further ado, here is that special report right now. Nanoparticles in our food. Is it safe? Is it poisonous? Does the lack of transparency of companies speak to a future issue that we might have concerning these? Will it be the same as genetically modified foods? Will it be touted as safe now, and then later we learn of the issues that we might have and the dangers involved in consuming foods containing nanoparticles, such as titanium dioxide it's already in many health products and food products? Is this something that will revolutionize the food industry? From packaging to preservation to nutritional enhanced foods? Or will it lead to the further degradation of our food supply? Slipping Through the Cracks, an issue brief on nanomaterials in food. Many companies that sell products containing nanomaterials commercially may not even know that nanomaterials are in their supply chain. This issue brief is intended to inform companies, investors, and consumers about the emerging use of engineered nanomaterials in food and food-related products, and to highlight the potential unknown risks of this technology. The state of knowledge about how nanomaterial food additives may react in the body and what their health impacts may be is in its infancy, and while there is currently an effort to understand these issues in greater depth, the authors believe much deeper scientific inquiry should occur before nanomaterials continue to be sold in food and food-related products. So this report echoes what many have said about the genetically modified foods, and that there should be a moratorium on their use until at least they're labeled, and even further until we really have independent studies and research showing that it's safe, when in the contrary has been the case. Introduction. Nanomaterials are often heralded as having the potential to revolutionize the food industry. The majority of food companies have not been responsive in providing information about their specific uses, plans, and policies on this topic, and no U.S. laws require disclosure. In addition, there are few, if any, studies adequately demonstrating the safety of nanoparticles in food additives or packaging. And As You Sow in 2012 sent out a survey to 2,500 of these companies asking about their nanomaterial use. The breakdown of these 2,500 companies included 100 of the largest food processing companies, the 50 largest food distributors, the 75 largest food retailers, the 25 top food packaging companies, the 50 top fast food companies, 187 nutritional supplement companies. And despite the outreach that as you so tried to make, I mean 2,500 surveys sent out, they only had 26 companies responded. And they say the lack of disclosure by food companies about their use or potential use of nano-enhanced products is an indicator that consumers, workers, shareholders, and government agencies are currently unable to assess how companies are evaluating and managing the potential safety concerns around the use of nanomaterials in food and food packaging. Now, nanomaterials and their food safety. Consumer acceptance of nano-food products will ultimately hinge on the question of its safety. Yes, of course, that's what I look at regularly every time I do a video, every time I do the research that I do for my weekly updates, is the issue of safety, because for me that's the most important thing. Now, it says a small percentage of these particles can move on from the intestinal tract into the blood and reach other organs. Now, this obviously is a problem because of their small size. Nanomaterials, nanoparticles are able to go places in the body that larger particles cannot. And as a result, they can reach potentially sensitive target sites, such as bone marrow, lymph nodes, the spleen, the brain, the liver, and the heart. Nanomaterials or nanoparticles penetrating the skin can distribute through the body via lymphatic channels. And even inhaled nano titanium dioxide has been found to act like asbestos and silicone, in that it accumulates in the lung and causes inflammation and can impact DNA proteins and cell membranes. Now, the part that I really saw and was quite alarmed at is this next part. And that is, as you can see with the chart here, the comparison on the spending concerning nano products compared to the development costs and what they're spending on development versus the safety testing. This is a huge eye-opener, or it should be, at the potential issue we have here, and that's the fact that the great amount of money going into product testing and product developing to put it out on the market versus the amount of safety testing that's being done, and there's next to no safety testing being done compared to the money spent on the development of the product. And this brief says that the minimal amount of funds going into safety testing in comparison to that of new nanoproduct development is this issue. It compares, in 2011 there was over $1.8 billion, $1.6 billion in 2012, and $1.76 billion in 2013 is proposed. And during those years, the funding for work in environmental health and safety as related to nanomaterials was $88 million, $102.7 million, and $105.4 million respectively. So you're talking about not even a tenth, if my math is correct, a tenth of the amount spent on safety versus the amount spent on product development. This is, as this article says, should be of utmost concern to the food industry, where human exposure is virtually guaranteed. Yes, at some point we're going to be exposed to this if it's put out there. Going back to the survey that As You Sow sent out to the 2,500 corporations, including the 100 largest food processing companies, they just asked 5 questions in this survey. One was whether the company is using nanomaterials. 2 is interested in or exploring the use of nanomaterials. 3, does this company have a policy on the use of nanomaterials? 4, does the company learn about and evaluate the use of nanoproducts? And lastly, whether anyone in the company is specifically responsible for product safety related to nanomaterials. So otherwise, do they have someone that's dedicated to that particular issue? And again, by companies not responding to this, only 26 companies responding, it highlights the general lack of transparency in the industry. And they have a chart here of the responses to the nanomaterials in food survey. And of course, this is again only 26 companies that respond to the survey. 10 said they do not know if they had nanomaterials in their products. That's scary. 14 companies stated that they were not using nanomaterials. That's good. And then 2 of them admitted that they were using the nanotechnologies. So you can see the other questions there. 2, they had formal policies. 3 had informal policies. 1 were developing policies, and 8 are not developing policies. So at least we can give them credit for responding to the survey. Now, the above responses highlight a significant challenge for consumers. Companies are divided on the safety of nanomaterials and make independent decisions based on their own interests. And so as you can see, and as I pointed out a couple of weeks ago when I covered that story, this is a huge issue. This is something that, along with genetically modified foods, so on and so forth, and all the other things in our food supply, this is a major issue, and it could be an item that, like I put on my blog, I basically said this could be, and this is my prediction, in direct competition with killing us, along with genetically modified foods. And so only time will tell the dangerousness of this as we do more testing, and also the issue of it being these tiny particles that can be in food without us knowing, and without further tests being done. We obviously don't know what it's going to do to us. So it's one more thing we have to keep an eye out on, in anything that has that titanium dioxide in it. It's not just an attack on powdered donuts. It's whatever has that titanium dioxide in it. It's found in other items such as deodorant and things like that. So we really need to pay attention to what it is, and going forward, what's going to happen, and what it could cause. And so that's going to be something else on the radar here going forward. And so I hope you enjoyed that special report. Just a quick little basic information on what it is, and some of the research that asyousow.org has already done on the issue. And so until next time, this is Food Offensive Weekly News. Thank you for joining me.